Welcome to Season 3 of Food Waste Matters, the podcast where we have those conversations about the fight against food waste. So each episode we talk to people who are finding smarter ways to make the most of our food, from farmers and businesses to researchers and industry leaders. But reducing food waste isn't just about the environment. It's also about supporting our local growers, saving money, and making sure perfectly good food doesn't go to waste. So if you're looking for practical ideas, real conversations, and actionable solutions, Food Waste Matters is for you. Hello and welcome back to Food Waste Matters. I'm Dr. Joanne Freeman from Honey & Fox. Each week, we chat with someone who's finding new ways to turn food waste into value, whether it's through innovative tech, community projects, or just fresh approaches to dealing with surplus produce. So today, I'm joined by Sofia Katzin, founder of FlyMumma. So Sophie's harnessing the power of black soldier flies, that's right, flies, to transform everyday scraps into high-value animal feed and rich soil conditioner. It's beautifully simple. So kitchen leftovers go in, the larvae convert it into protein, and the leftover, which is called frass, I'd never even heard of that word, becomes nutrient-packed fertilizer. So Sophia, welcome to Food Waste Matters. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I always wanted to speak about food waste for Australians.
Oh, right up my alley. So let's get right into it then. Can you tell us about how FlyMumma began and what was that moment that convinced you to look into insect bioconversion and how it could work for farmers?
Absolutely. And I usually say that FlyMumma started out of equal parts of frustration and inspiration. About 9 years ago, I came to Australia as a backpacker, and I was working in the hospitality industry where I was watching pallets loads of edible food going to the bin. And on the other hand, I come from Argentina, and when resources are limited, you turn them into opportunities. So seeing food being dumped in Australia felt a little bit silly for me, and I needed to find the solution. Because I'm a food scientist, I felt I had the tools to do something about it, right? Then and this is going to turn into a little bit of a personal journey, but in a sustainability forum back in 2019, I held for the first time insect farming. And at that time, I was petrified from anything that had wings. So I felt a little bit ridiculous to apply insects to food waste transformation. But then when I started to research into it and the whole idea of insect bioconversion and turning waste and upcycling it into high quality products made absolute sense. I was researching, and every time it was blowing up my mind even more. And I had this gut feeling that this was the right thing to do because it was transforming waste into a scalable solution, completely circular. And that's really when I thought that this was a great idea for Australian farmers. Fast forward, I joined Future Bean Solutions, now called Arvela. So it's a company here in WA, Perth. And I joined as a research assistant, and eventually I started leading the research and development team. And we proved that black soldier fly was going to work for WA climate. This is really a tropical species. So think of indoor valley weather like Cairns or anywhere really where it's tropical. So around 28 degrees and 70% humidity. And part of my work at the company was to build the quality assurance protocols that let us sell a safe and consistent product, right? Because nobody wants to have unsafe ingredients in their animal feed. So over the 4 years I worked for the company, me and the team developed protocols and processes that let us keep millions of insects alive, laying eggs and growing on scale. Then when the industry started ringing for help, I launched FlyMumma, which is an independent consultancy business to troubleshoot globally and run feedstock trials in my own research and development facility here in Perth, where I live. So what does it mean to be a consultant in this space? Because it's a very broad term, right? So I identify low performance stages of this process for producers and all this around the world. And I provide actionable steps to solve those problems. Let's say breeding issues, for example, which is a very common one. So the flies are dying. Okay, well, I can develop diets that give them that boost to stay alive for more time. Or larvae not gaining weight. Could be that the substrate is too acidic, too soupy, because the larvae don't really know how to swim. They only crawl. Or unknown feedstocks as well. So in my facility here in Perth, I run feedstock trials. So let's say mixing spent grain, veggie waste, or yeast slurry to hit the right protein to carb ratio. I like to joke that I'm a larvae nutritionist, and everyone laughs about it because my role really is to give them diet and analyze how much weight they put on. And this weight, it's important that it's lean weight, because if you don't give them the right ingredients, they can put on fat, and that doesn't really align with the customer requirements, which are usually pet food companies or animal feed manufacturers, and they are really after the insect protein and not the fat itself.
So, Sophia, who would have thought that you put flies on a special diet? So can you break your process down, for layman's terms, for people that aren't food scientists or technologists as well? For someone like me, how does it actually work?
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through the process and picture the whole thing as a 12-day loop. Yes, for production. And I'll start with the eggs because that's where everything begins. We have a nursery stage, just like for babies, human babies. And this is where the baby larvae hatches out of the eggs. Then they are fed into trays with like a porridge slag. Like we don't really give them just whole carrots, whole piece of bread. We have to shred it down so it's a good texture for the little larvae. And it looks like, as I said, a porridge, and that's the starter feed. 5 days after that, once they hit the teenage growth phase, they are ready for the real food waste. And this is where on day 5, where we have this crazy ratio that everyone is surprised because only 1 kilo of eggs can turn into larvae that can treat up to 30 tons of organic waste. So this is between 1 or 2 full truckloads. And in terms of examples, we typically source pre-consumer offcuts, think spent grain from breweries or veggie trim, so like carrot tops, potato peels, pineapple tops as well. And we try to source them from local food waste suppliers because, of course, we don't want to add on top of that logistic costs. And so we have a centralized facility, and just like GoTerra, so this is one of the most popular companies in Australia where you can treat the waste on site. And once the waste is received, it has to be weighed because it's not something kind of we mix and just chuck a few insects. There is a process behind it. So we weigh the load, we log it, we shred it into a mash. And that's when it's 70% moisture because, again, it's a tropical species. So they thrive in high water quantities. And here, from day 5 to then 11, this is when the whole bioconversion process happens. And this is when the food waste is reduced into a very low volume fertilizer. So the mash, it's pumped into trays. The juveniles are inoculated, or we add them on top like a seeding. And everything moves into a climate control container. So think just like a shipping container adapted with this climate control. And we have the trays inside, the larvae inside, and 6 to 7 days later, disappears. This 1 ton of food waste that we put initially, for example, will turn into 200 to 250 of larvae that can be used for animal feed manufacturing, and 400 kilos of frass, which is the insect manure and can be used as an organic soil amendment. Just to finish off, the day 11, that's harvesting time when we separate this. So we have machinery to do this, so we don't rely on labor because it's quite a big and demanding process. And then if you want to keep the larvae for reproduction, so turning the larvae into flies and eggs again, you will need an extra 3 weeks, but that's a different process.
So, Sophia, 12 days. What are there any surprising byproducts that make great feed, that you can turn into great feed?
Yes. So I like to say that black soldier flies have iron stomachs because they tackle a wide range of organics. And this is a big difference with other insects, like, let's say, earthworms, that people are more common to have in the compost bin or worm farms. Earthworms usually find it difficult with citrus, eggshells, animal waste, so like your leftover chicken or meat. But black soldier fly, on the other hand, they can pretty much work with all these ingredients. But of course, just like humans, they thrive on a balanced diet. And that's where I come in as a lab nutritionist. And let's talk about examples, okay? So brewery spent grain, which is the leftover grain after producing beer, or could be after producing apple with the apple mash. We also get fruit and veg leftovers and bakery dough. So this is really the classic recipe that has really good carbs, really good protein, a little bit of fat, and that's where there is a lot of success in a lot of companies. But I'm going to highlight this, that these are not always available, because even though they sound delicious, they can still be used for livestock. So pigs, cows, chickens, etc. So we don't want to really take away resources from the animals. We want to really focus on food waste, right? So this is when it gets interesting, or at least for me, that I'm so passionate about food waste transformation. Let's talk about low value ingredients, and this could be slaughterhouse waste. So the gut content of cows, that it's really high fiber, and currently it's going to landfill. And for me, that's really unacceptable. We really have to make this insect bioconversion applicable to these streams that otherwise they go to landfill. So what we do, it's mix that high fiber material with just a little bit of other, let's say, starchy offcuts. So it could be potatoes or just a little bit of grain. I'm saying less than 5%. And then we can turn this expensive disposal problem into a protein opportunity.
So what are some of the benefits for a small grower or a farmer? And also, can this be adapted to households as well?
Yes, correct. So I am going to use a public success example, which is GoTerra, because they have done both scenarios where they are treating kind of agricultural waste, but also household waste or hotel waste, catering waste. So they have installed a shipping container, which they call maggot robot. And it's installed just in the car parks of hotels or even at like councils. So in Alexandria, there is a multiple shipping container units that handle food scraps from around 20,000 apartments. So this is a large number. And this is aiming to divert 600 tons of waste from landfill. So the waste coming in, it's really mixed waste. We don't really know what's coming, right? Could be someone does a smoothie and then there is a lot of vegetable trims, but maybe it's Christmas time and there is a lot of prawns. So there is a lot of variety, and this system, it's able to treat that difficult waste. Because really it's easy when you, or for me at least as a larvae nutritionist, it's easy to have control of what's coming in. So I mix my carrots with my bakery waste and that's kind of easy. But GoTerra, which I really recommend everyone reading about, it's a great example of truly diverting food waste from landfill. And then it can be turned into this organic fertilizer that can be used in broadacre or greenhouses or vegetable farms to improve the soil texture. So it wouldn't really replace an inorganic fertilizer. We're not saying really just stop buying urea and add frass, but it's really like additive because it brings a lot of great microbiome to the soil.
So, Sophia, these insect-based products can feel really new to consumers or regulators. So how have you navigated the, approvals to make sure, everything meets the safety standards?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great question, because consumer perception is really one of our first barriers to implement this at large scale, because people, unfortunately, have the thinking of, if this GoTerra puts this container out of our apartments, we're going to be full of flies. Well, no. We only having the larvae. They can't really turn into flies like that. It's not that easy. So we will have them contained as well. They are in this container. They don't leave the container. They don't go crawling out or flying outside. So it's safe in that regards. It's not going to disturb Australia biodiversity. And there is quality protocols in place to make sure that even though we are treating byproducts at the start, we still have a safe product at the end. I have a lot of experience because being a food technologist, my main kind of studies at uni was how we can provide safe products and provide food security without just introducing novelty, and proven novelty full of bacteria. And in the rest of the world, it's a little bit different. So there are quality standards already developed 10 years ago. Australia is really catching up, but progress it's being made, and the standards are evolving, and we need to be part of shaping them. And now here I'm going to tell you a little bit of what has just happened, it's a really good story. Just launched, literally on the 8th of May of 2025, AgriFutures, in collaboration with University of Adelaide, released a 5-year insect industry research plan. This is part of a $2 million program, which sets out the 3 headline strategies and 3 enable work streams to move Australia insect sector from demo and just a little play around to commercial scale in the next 5 years. And the core strategies, these 3 that I just said: best practices headlines and industry standards. So like a gold standard manual for the rearing, processing, and QA. Number 2, market development and consumer education. So build this reputation and social license demand for insect-derived products, and could be the protein for pet food or animal feed, oil for cosmetics, and frass for biofertilizers. And this should be through case studies, on-farm demos and extension events. And the last one, industry capacity building. So grow the talent and tech base, because at this stage, there is only a few of us. So training, university partnerships, share pilot trials, and technology hubs. And just to finish off this question, if I had to talk about my personal experience at Future Green Solutions, this company that I was working for, I helped turn us into the first insect protein producer in Australia that was accredited the Feed Safe. And this is the quality scheme that stock feed industry already trusts us. So that, let's say, someone that buys ingredients to feed chickens, well, now can trust us as well.
That was awesome. Sofia, just to finish off, so looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunities for the black soldier fly technology in Australia? And are there, besides the one with AgriFutures and University of Adelaide, are there any other exciting projects on the horizon?
Yes, absolutely. So initially, before answering your questions, I'm going to tell a little bit of background and why this new model will work. So when we started the industry around 10, 15 years ago, there was a massive hype on build one monster facility where all the waste was coming in. And we call that a centralized facility. And there were a few examples just recently, and this is not the greatest news, but there were a few of these big companies in Europe, Insect, AgroNutries, Enorm in Denmark, for example, that didn't go well and go bankrupt in the last few months. But what was the common issue between them? Massive capex, so a large investment requirement, a lot of logistic bills to pay. So what's the lesson? That transporting soggy food scraps with low value and high water content doesn't really make sense. So now we learn from our mistakes, and with every crisis, there is an opportunity. And why GoTerra, going back to the example that I explained before, it's doing so well because they are actually offering decentralized systems where we don't transport the waste anymore. We treat the waste on site. And that's amazing, really. And I think that's where the industry is going to go. So we're going to do really on-the-box systems. So you're a waste producer. Let's say you have manures, or it's a bakery, or could be even the major supermarkets that are currently on board with GoTerra system. So you just install at the back of your car park a container, done. Waste comes in, 7 days later, it's gone.
It's gone. Well, Sofia, that was absolutely fascinating, and I understood about 95% of our conversation, so it was fascinating. And who would have thought flies could contribute so much to reducing waste? So, look, thank you for walking us through the FlyMumma journey and sharing how businesses and eventually householders can turn waste into value using the black soldier fly. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Anytime.
And that wraps up our chat with Sofia from FlyMumma. And what an eye-opening look at what you can do with farm and household waste. Now, if you'd like to learn more or explore their modular BSF systems, head over to flymumma.com.au. I've also included the link in the show notes. And as always, if you've got questions, feedback, or your own waste to worth story, drop us a line at foodwastematters@honeyandfox.com.au. And you can also catch up on all our past episodes on YouTube or any popular podcast platforms like Spotify, Google, or Apple. Just search for Food Waste Matters. So thank you for listening to Food Waste Matters this week, and we'll see you next time.